I think art is purely for you.
You're up, you'll get down. You're never running from this town. And I think you said you'll never get anything better than this. 'Cause you're going round in circles, and everyone knows your trouble. 'Cause you're written in a big book.
Going to UVA and seeing how many forms or like venues of expressions we have for street art made me realize how popular it actually is. One example that comes to mind is Beta Bridge. It's actually interesting how we started using art for like political expression.
I think that some people like to use it because it is a way to be artistic, but I think that a lot of times it's just used to let people know about like what's going on in the community, but in an artistic way.
They're always tweeting about what's on beta, they're uploading it to Facebook, so it's not just people on rugby who see it, it's everyone's curious. I feel like it's more to just raise awareness, but the more artsy, the more attention. Woohoo, I contributed.
I didn't pay as much attention to different types of art, let's say, until I went on semester at sea and I got to go around the world and see all these different countries and notice the different types of art that would be available on the street. So like in South Africa they had, I think, a couple of murals about anti-apartheid that they kept even after the apartheid regime fell. I remember that in India there was a lot of that too, lots of colors on the walls. But for instance, once we got to China, there was none of that. And I kind of missed that, or kind of felt like the void where there's not as much like color or expression going on. And I think it says a lot about the place that you come from. And once I got back to Charlottesville, that's when I actually noticed how much creativity we have around here. I'm part of an organization at UVA called Students for Peace and Justice in Palestine, and we at first started using that bridge as like the first venue we have for our meetings as an icebreaker, where we would get all the members together and they would paint like a message on the bridge for the night. And that was kind of like the way we got people together, through art, and they would meet each other for the first year. And as the years went by, we started using the bridge more for expression with messages that we would want to send out when the political climate, like for our context, was going through something that we noticeable, or when we wanted people to pay attention to an issue that was happening. So with Gaza in 2008, we painted the bridge in solidarity. Last year we painted the bridge through elections.
In the late 80s, early 90s, the Charlottesville High School art department teachers came to the local business owners to ask permission to do an urban art project in the neighborhood. The urban art project has evolved into painting the wall, much like the Beta Bridge at the University of Virginia.
In comparison to Beta Bridge, which is mostly for like publicity, public messages, the graffiti wall, I think, is a much more personal means of expression, in which artists can like redesign graffiti and have personal reasons to want to express it publicly.
Many of the art pieces that are on the wall stay for months at a time. Most of them stay for a week or two. It's a short-lived theme. And in some instances, one specific instance, a young man did an art painting on the wall and was killed in an auto accident several weeks later. And after the death of this young man, many of the artists knew who he was and left the art project in place for almost an entire year. And according to some of the people I've talked to over the years, it stayed until the day of his passing. So that was pretty respectful. It was a fabulous piece of art, but It's one of those things that there's a great deal of respect for one another.
When I was a kid, there was a little girl in my kindergarten class who was really sick as a child, and so what my teachers did was take us, like the group of kindergartners that were in her class, and basically there was an area around her house, and we painted like a lot of messages for her, and we did like a whole painting for her as kids. And now, like 15, 16 years later, when I go back home and I drive by her house, there's still like a little chunk of that message that we had like there. So that was my first experience with street art, and it was a lot of fun. As a kid, I didn't really realize like the impact it had on people. A lot of people like have this creativity that they would like to express and not necessarily are able to in the ways, like in conventional ways. And I guess street art is like this beautiful unconventional way where they get to like do a service to themselves and let out their creativity and get us to enjoy it.
I think some of the people do it for self-expression, and I think some of them do it to show off, which is what art's all about.
I also heard about the Pluto parking lot project that's going on at the moment, which is like a sort of mural but on a parking lot. It's interesting because it's the work of students in an art class who are transforming a landscape for a certain amount of time. It's like a modern and more unique way of creating public art. I think it's for the artist's self-satisfaction, once again, of knowing that they created this piece of art.
I kept driving by this parking lot for years. I thought, man, this would be a good parking lot to paint. It'd be a good parking lot to paint, blah, 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 blah. So I called the phone number, and fortunately, it belonged to the university. So I had this, fortunately, an architectural drawing of this parking lot that was given to me by the people who own it. And so I was able to like do these drawings on it. And I thought, okay, well, here's his teeth in the middle, and and it's a square, and it just like he fit into it. Uh-oh, got white paint on my shoe, and everywhere I step it's gonna be white. Do a little white dance. I'm more interested in manipulating something that we take for granted, which is a parking lot. So if I'm a modern day muralist, what do I paint? Maybe I paint parking lots. The name of the cat in the book is Pluto. Pluto in this story is the kind of conscientious indicator. The man has a cat that loves him, it's a black cat. Finally, he murders his cat. First, he tortures him by gouging his eye out with a penknife. And then eventually he hangs the cat. So the cat kind of haunts him, and behind his bed is a silhouette, similar to these silhouettes that we're painting, of a cat that's being hung. Okay. Like, I don't want to like make a real big, colorful, impressionistic painting on a parking lot. It's got to be about the parking lot as well. That's why I was real interested in having Google Earth see it, because it's like the satellite's like a big camera. So so much of our artwork gets documented after we do it, in particular temporary work like this. If it's on Google Earth, anybody in the world can see it. I believe in street art. I think that there's a lot of beautiful street art that gets done. I like the message behind what they're saying. You know, this is a public space. This is, this belongs to everybody. That's the beauty of a mural or public art. It doesn't belong to anybody and it belongs to everybody. And yeah, in that respect, I think that that there's people that would like to have their voice equally heard.